Good morning. Very warm welcome on this cold morning to all of our guests. Thank you for being here. Anybody ever been to Minnesota? I'm a southern boy, but I love Minnesota. It's a beautiful state. And if you go to Minnesota, there's a beautiful place called Lake Itasca. Lake Itasca, Minnesota. And you can stand on two rocks right near the middle of the lake, and literally right underneath your feet is this slow bubble of water. It's about the size of a quarter, about that big. Anybody know what that becomes? Mississippi River. This little bubble. It's the size of a quarter. You can see it. It's almost like a simmer. And it becomes this beast as it gathers steam. I was down at the Mississippi this week. This thing's huge, overflowing. You know what? Our negative thinking starts the same way. Depression, discouragement. That's how it starts. And all of a sudden, as time goes on, it builds steam. And it takes over our families and our marriages and our life. It's like the Mississippi River, and you think, man, I just need to stack some sandbags towards my discouragement. Kind of keep it at bay. Start small. We start buying into this bad thinking, right? Well, good thinking starts the same way. It goes like this. If you feel like you're just barely holding your life together, we've all been there. Like at any given moment, our lives could totally fall apart. You know, we're spinning plates, we're juggling, we're drinking water from a fire hose. If you feel like you're just holding it together, well, the truth is this. You're probably doing better than you give yourself credit for, number one. And number two, God will be there to get you through it. I promise. Promise. He's never given up on us until this point. He's not going to start now. It's not going to start now. You know, we often feel that way in our lives, that we're just barely holding it together. Like at any given moment, my marriage, my children could go off the deep end, my job, they could let me go tomorrow. Like if somebody sneezed the wrong way, we'd lose it all. Here's a little statistic for you. Did you know that if a man is going to leave the priesthood, it's going to happen about the 5-year mark of his priesthood? They've done a lot of studies on this. Right around 4, 5, or 6-year mark, if a man is going to leave the priesthood, and I'm not finger wagging or throwing stones, it's usually around the 5-year mark. Any idea why? Why 5 years? Well, he gets discouraged. Some diocese priests get very little support from their bishops, I'm sorry to say. And so he's like, you know, why am I doing this anyway? Why am I doing this anyway? People think that priests leave the priesthood to get married. That's usually not the case. They get discouraged. They start thinking something up here that becomes like the Mississippi River. How about another stat? Do you know if a couple is going to call it quits, it will usually happen around when? 5-year mark, statistically. Any idea why? Because after about 5 years, you wake up next to somebody who's snoring, and you think, this is forever, man. Woo! Right? I don't know if I'm ready for this. You know? So we can buy into this like negative thinking that takes over our life. And all of a sudden, it takes on a life of its own. It's like this ogre. And we feel like we're barely holding it together. So often in our lives, right? In this first reading, it's what we hear about today from Sirach. It says this: tribulation is the trial of the just. Now, what does that mean? Tribulation is the trial of the just. That means this: God is going to be there to walk us through this, to hold our hand, and not only that, to make us stronger on the other side. If you stick with me, Jesus says. For any one of us, we've all made errors, we've all made boo-boos, but God will bring goodness out of it, right? There's often like two main reasons why people feel like they're just barely holding their lives together. Number one, when you feel helpless to help other people. When people feel helpless to help, like those of you with children or grandchildren, you know when they're going through a struggle and you want to do more, but you can't. I mean, talk to the parents at St. Jude Hospital right now. You feel helpless to help other people. Number two, when certain situations and people are outside of your control. You remember the serenity prayer? I talk about this all the time. If you know the serenity prayer, say it with me. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and what? How many know the difference? Keeping in mind the situations we cannot change are often people. But what we can control and change are who? Yourself. You remember Albert Einstein's definition of insanity? You ever heard this? Says Albert Einstein, insanity is making the same mistakes over and over again and expecting a good result. Like a dog chasing its tail. And we wonder why things aren't clicking in our life. Why am I barely holding it together? Maybe we need to change. You call me crazy. Maybe we need to change. It takes courage to do that, though. It takes some serious, serious courage to do that, you know? In each one of our life, if you feel like you're just barely hanging on, sometimes we need to change our approach. We need to reach out to people we've never reached out to. That's what Lent, by the way, is about. This is a time to say, you know what? I've been hitting my head against a wall for a while, and I'm not getting anywhere. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change my approach. If I need to go talk to somebody about a problem, I'm going to do it. If I need to get involved in my parish, because I've been thinking I'm going to do that, but I haven't pulled the trigger, yeah, now I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to do that. Anybody remember, this is kind of going old school, anybody remember Blockbuster Video? Remember that? So, you know, on a Friday night, you go to Blockbuster, get a video, and you spend like 3 hours trying to find a video, and they had a box, so you'd have to look behind it to see if there's a little VHS was there. And usually somebody took it, right? So now you got to spend another 3 hours trying to find a video. Young people are like, what is he talking about, man? Father Ben's old. So, in the 90s, people were coming to the CEO of Blockbuster Video and the board, and they're like, look, you guys are dating yourself here. VHS is going out. People are moving into DVDs now. And the board is like, that's crazy. That's never going to pick up steam. It's crazy. In 1997, there's a man named Reed Hastings. Reed Hastings one Saturday was cleaning out the backseat of his car, and he found a VHS from Blockbuster Video that was past due. Oh, man. And so he takes it back to Blockbuster Video, and there's $50 late fee, $50. And so he was so mad, he went home that day, and he started a company called Netflix. Maybe you've heard of it. Today, Reed Hastings has a net worth of $5 billion. And so he tells the story. Sometimes he gives talks and he says, I wish I could tell you that I had this great business plan for starting Netflix. He said, I started it because I was terrified to go home and tell my wife I had a $50 late fee. But sometimes in our spiritual life is like Blockbuster Video, right? You pardon the expression. In other words, we need to shake up. We need to shake up. We need a little Netflix spirituality, if you don't mind. But for many of us, that's kind of scary, right? It's kind of scary. So for instance, if you're at work tomorrow morning, and there's somebody that's always sitting by themselves, well, go sit with them. Reach out to them. I go to hospitals and nursing homes all the time. The vast majority of those people completely alone. Completely alone. And sometimes I'll walk through the aisle and I see people and they're just hoping that somebody comes in. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter their background. Just pick a hospital. Walk through. Talk to someone. Pushing. If you feel like you're just barely hanging on in your life, the truth is you're probably doing better than you give yourself credit for. But the truth is also, it might be time to change our approach.